Jaco, welcome to this environment. It's a new role within the Springbok setup. It has occurred in the past that there's been a former international referee working with the Springboks. But tell us about what's expected of you in this new role post your retirement.
Yeah, it's obviously a new world for me sitting on this side, but it's really exciting. I think it will be clearly defined over the next few months and developed. But the first expectation is for me to maintain those relationships with the World Rugby referees and actually build it out. So we have good relations, and we never have to go into a space where communication is cut down by World Rugby. We always want to be in the best position where lines are open. So that's one of the expectations. The second responsibility is to make sure that our players are, smart. They know the law and they know where they can, find the grey areas.
How tough was it for you, on reflection, to decide to call it a day on refereeing at international level?
In the end, wasn't that tough. Maybe the last year, there's been a period where you think about it a lot. And I sat with my wife and we had a few glasses of wine and you talk about this and when's enough. And when's the time for the next challenge. So this wasn't on the cards. And I informed SA Rugby management that they have to start planning because I'm definitely going to step away. And then the injury came and it accelerated that with about 2-3 months. I would have ended after the season. So I got a phone call and a few Teams meetings later. Rassie and Charles said that they've got this idea and they think I can play a role and bring benefit to the Springboks. So I was really chuffed with that. It didn't take me too long to consider. And yeah, here we are.
And reflecting on your career as a professional referee, I'm sure a real roller coaster. So let's just concentrate on the highs, of which there were many, but perhaps you could pick out a few for us that are special to you.
Yeah, especially. People always think that finals and test matches are special, and they are. But I remember Super Rugby games of the highest quality. So one at Newlands, Stormers Chiefs, where those games will always, be one of the first memories when you think back about the good times in rugby. It's just one of those games where you start the game, you referee it properly for 10 minutes, and then the players take it over. And you sit back, you run with them, and it's one of the best spectacles. So that game will always stand out for me, even though it wasn't a test match. Plenty of matches I can recall at test match level, England-Wales, or Wales-England in Millennium Stadium with the roof closed. I mean, that's really special. Le Crunch, I did that about 3 times. It's never easy, even though one of those teams might be low on the table at that point, because there's normally a last weekend and Six Nations. It's always special and intense. Many Bledders lows. So I've seen quite a few test matches, but pinnacle probably. British Lions, New Zealand 2017, that opening test match. The quality, the speed, the attention. And I walked away from it not too bad, so that helps. And probably World Cup opening game at this last World Cup. Again, the magnitude of the event where two top teams, probably two teams in the top 3 favourites, to win the World Cup, play each other in game 1. And again, for my selfish reasons, we walked away from our match not being the topic. So for me, that was special. Yeah.
That was a very special moment. We were all watching that game and rooting for Jaco Peyper on a massive occasion. But similarly, the disappointment in the quarterfinal of having to concede that something had popped. You weren't quite sure what at that moment, but we saw some footage of you broken. Because did you realise then that was it?
Oh, look, you hope it's not that it's not it, and you try and get to the best medical treatment that you can, but deep inside, this is it. And it's a disappointment, obviously, because you've worked a whole career to get to this point where you definitely in the mix for the final, depending which teams go through. So yeah, it's massive disappointment. But in perspective, it didn't take me too long to realise that you can't confuse the minute with the hour. You know, you can't confuse the second with the minute. You know, so rugby's been so good to me. I've had so many good experiences on and off the field. Made so many friends across the world. So perhaps that's really disappointing. But if you look at the whole picture, then you go, well, it's okay. Rugby's been good to me.
You raise a really interesting point there around, you know you're in the running for a final depending on who gets there. How tough is that for a referee? Because I guess in your heart of hearts, you never wanted to referee a Rugby World Cup final because you would hope that the Springboks would be in it.
Exactly. Look, I grew up green and gold. This is the only team I could support my whole life because I could never referee them. Any franchise, any other club team or any other international team, you can't support because you have to be, you know, very objective. But the Springboks is the one team that I could sit on my couch and give my mates a bit of stick or how they referee. And the Springboks are really the one team that I passionately want to win. So if you plan for a World Cup, you plan to be in the best form. If you plan for a final, it's out of your control. So I've learned quickly in certain tournaments when there's neutrality that if you plan for a final, you set yourselves up for failure sometimes. You got to plan to be the best, in the best form, and the best nick, and then selection is out of your hands. It could be a team, it could be two guys performing at a good level. Yes, I never planned for a final. I always hoped for the Springboks to win. And if Jaco Peyper referees the final, a few people's happy and a lot of people's upset. But if the Springboks play the final, a whole country, you know, gets that hope and the positive vibe.
Jaco, at this last Rugby World Cup, perhaps more than at any other time, referee abuse became a really public thing. We've recently seen that the documentary made, Whistleblowers, which World Rugby made in an attempt to bring focus, to make people realize the extent of what was being thrown at referees. I'm fascinated to know how you and your refereeing colleagues really felt that, how you dealt with it, and how you plan to deal with it going forward. I mean, you are not lost to international refereeing. You're taking on this role with the Springboks, but I know you've made many dear friends in the refereeing fraternity and that you will continue to stay in touch. So how does one address this?
Yeah, there's no one, you know, specific science or way to address this and say, I'm going to sort this out. It's got more aggressive over time now. It's got more personal, more direct. But we've also discussed that the lads know that if you put yourselves out there, you're going to be found. So from a personal level, and I'm not saying any of those platforms are bad. I like those platforms, but I don't engage in those platforms. It makes it harder for people to get to my family. It's a decision I took. So it's fine if people criticize Jaco Peyper or attack me, but my 6-year-old, she never decided to be in this environment. I dragged her in here. So I reserved that space, you know, as a private space, and therefore I didn't engage. Is that the right way to do it? No, but certainly I avoided a few conflicts by doing that. The lads out there also now know that they've got to be responsible and, you know, be careful on how they, you know, present themselves in that environment, because it also attracts, there's many pats on the back, but then you've also got to accept you're gonna get a few bloody noses, you know, if you put yourselves out there. World Rugby's done their best to use some of these, I don't know what you call it, but the sites that actually filter and clear those people that attack online and all those sort of things. They've done their best that they could, but I mean, if you put yourselves out there and you've got to accept in this game and the passion that we have in this game, that people will be unreasonable. Sometimes there's a game after dinner and the guys had a few beers. So naturally, they're already unreasonable, you know, and biased. So I don't think there's one way that we can stop this, except by asking our coaches and teams, and that's one of my roles here, to respect the referees. We can't ask them to agree with referees. We can't ask them to say the referee's right always. But we can always promote that these guys have wives, they've got kids, or they've got family. They're human, just like you. And I think through Whistleblowers, maybe to an extent, brought that forward, that these are human beings. And I think that's maybe the only way I see how we can probably limit these attacks.
But also, there has to be an acceptance, surely, that inevitably there's a strong element of subjectivity to refereeing a game of rugby. If you take the breakdown as one example, people often say that you arrive at a breakdown and there are countless decisions that you could be called upon to make. So how difficult is that as a referee, that element of subjectivity and being about what you see in that one moment?
Yeah, I think refereeing, just like the playing side, is if you're individual and you follow your own, what you want to see versus what the refereeing fraternity wants to see at this point. So the World Cup referees had a key focus, signed off with the teams and the coaches. All decided that this is the best for the game if this is the focus. So it's not referee-driven, it's coaches and referee-driven. Now we go onto the field and at least everyone's coaching towards that, you're trying to play towards that, then you try to referee towards that. Then we review that on Monday or after the game and we can align. Team need to adjust or referee needs to adjust. So that's a huge step in the, I'd say, an alignment direction that we didn't have 4, 5, 6 years ago, where you had more individualized approaches. However, if people lose confidence, like I've done before, you go and when you get under pressure, often you don't see that team picture and you don't drive that agenda and you start protecting yourself. So easiest way to protect yourself is law and not read the game, you know. So I'm correct on law. So yeah, it's when you get to a breakdown and you've got confidence, you're seeing the ball this big, you know, it's like in cricket terms, then it unfolds and you see the things that matter better. If you're under pressure or you're late for a reason, or sometimes you're obscured, you see things different. The best referees in the world, or the best form referees in the world, see the right things more often. And it's just like playing.
And how important has the concept of team of four become with your assistants and your TMO?
It's huge. Team of four, we realised as referees we just cannot do this on our own anymore. I walked into the Lanesbury 29 in my first meeting at World Rugby, where all the international referees in one room. And it was all about me and me and me, and everybody got up, and my opinion is this, and my opinion is that. And when you refereed, people would look away, you know, when the pressure is on, assistant referees would look away, because why would you put yourselves in there if you just want to get to next week when you referee, you know, kind of, where we changed that because it's too fast, it's too dynamic. We had to start playing in a team to look after each other. We also spend a lot of time on the road together. So as referees, we realized there's space for 10 excellent referees in the world. We don't have to only have 2. In fact, if you only have 2 excellent referees, they carry all the weight because they get all the big games. And if you can spread the load, it's better for everybody's welfare, not just on the field, but off the field. So I think the modern day referees, team of fours, and it's not just team of four, it's even your sub-controllers. You know, there's the extended team that live together for the week leading up to a big test match, or spend a lot of time together. You've got to look after each other. Otherwise, individually, we're not going to be successful.
Jaco, referees often talk publicly through that microphone, which now makes them such an integral part of the game, about showing good pictures, players showing good pictures. Yep. And as the head impact protocols have become more and more in focus, it has required a behavioural change.
Yes.
Now, we can say with some confidence that we saw that in the Springbok team, that they trained relentlessly to change instinctive behaviour, to go lower and so on. How important is behavioural change becoming in rugby, and especially from the point of view of a referee and the picture that they are seeing?
Yeah, so you have to have a coaching team that buys into it. If the referee team says this law is nonsense or I don't get it, and the players don't buy into it, they won't fix it at training and they won't show the pictures on the field. So you have to have a management or a coaching team that really buys into why are we doing this, and then drive it through their team. So it's really important, because we always say if you do it the first time on the field, you know, obviously you're not going to be as good at it. But if you, at training, consistently level change, as we've seen with the tackle height, So they've had a tackle height on, even if it's tackle bags or entering any contact, you had to dip and come in lower. So it becomes second nature. It takes a week to adjust a little bit of behavior change. Third week, fourth week, and then under pressure, you get better. And I think it's the Springboks conceded no yellow cards, I think, up to playoffs, the only team. So, and that was testimony to the work they've done and the commitment they've showed. Referees can only see pictures, and it's a snapshot of a picture. So even like tackle, assist, release, sometimes on replay, the player actually released, but it's not available to the human eye, from that angle. So that's when we talk about pictures. When you show the picture, it's not what you perceive you're doing, it's what you perceive someone else seeing you doing. So, and that's important in refereeing, whether a scrum time, maul time, breakdown, you present pictures that the referee then have to facilitate and judge on. And the better your pictures at training, the better your pictures on the field.
So is that going to be part of your role within the Springbok setup as well? It's not just engaging at a World Rugby level and with former colleagues who remain on the panel as referees, but also in a training environment to assist with creating those pictures.
Yeah, so part of my role would be best practice. What's the key focus? So we've got hundreds of laws, but at any given time, there's 15 points of focus, like 3 at the breakdown, 3 at scrum. So I've got to make sure that the players know what the key focus is, that stakeholders now believe drives a good game of rugby, and then make sure that at training we present well. So coaches have to coach in that way. Your scrum coach can't coach something that the player can't show a good picture. So I have to work with the coaches, make sure that they are in line with the best practice, and then we've got to go to the training field and make sure that the players present as well as they can.
Now, I have to ask you, did you feel that when you retired from refereeing, it might be a case of back into the legal office and doing quite a lot of admin and representing more clients as a lawyer? Or did you secretly hope that a role like this might pop up?
Look, when rugby's in your blood and in your DNA, I think you know that you'll be involved in some way. Whether it's just refereeing, mentoring some of our young referees, which will also be part of my role going forward, or whether it's blowing back at a team. I imagine myself coaching a high school team in Bloem, because if you love the game, you can't stay away from it. My wife says, it'll be 2-3 weeks and I'll be back in it. And it was actually 2 weeks. And, and we started talking rugby again. If you love the game, there's no ways you can stay away from it.
And you must have had conversations with your refereeing colleagues, some of whom have also stepped away from the game at the same time as you, but some who will remain for a long time to come. And is there a positive acceptance around the involvement of a recently retired referee in a team setup like you have taken on?
Yeah, it sounds like it. Let's see, the proof is in the pudding. But at least I've got that honest, open relationship with the guys. I spend a lot of time with them, and I think it's easier for them to communicate with someone like me that they know well than to talk to a coach that might be upset or, have a certain way of thinking about certain things. So I think it might assist both ways. I think it'll be easier for the team to communicate with them, and I think it'll be less stress for them to communicate with the team and maybe get things out of the way. No preferential treatment, just get things out of the way that we don't have to deal with it Saturday.
One of the things that came up in the Springboks evolution in their preparation for and during their 2023 Rugby World Cup campaign, the coaching staff said we had to make it easier for referees. We were asking referees to adjudicate things that were our strengths, like a scrum penalty, and maybe we wouldn't get it. So we had to, in their parlance, fire more shots and make it easier for referees. Did you see that evolution in the Springboks as you analysed their performances?
Definitely, and I was part of the conversation when we worked through that, and I said we're putting too much pressure on the referee to make certain decisions, and therefore we get really upset if they don't. And they probably made 7 out of 10 of those decisions, so they made a load of decisions. but you can't expect them to make 10 out of 10 because there's not just one phase to service in this game. There's a balance. One, there's a spectacle. Two, and I think the coaches then, they knew they had to evolve and bring more variety in that process, and they did so valiantly. So, I mean, the referees, it was tough. 2 years ago, it was really tough to referee the Springboks because, it's going to be a lot of focus on the referee. Did you make a decision? And then if you make the decision, the opposition will, show you why it's not the correct decision or why there was blocking technically, etc., etc. So I think the Springboks will always be a confrontational team. It will always be a team that bring you into the decision making, but you can't expect the referee then to be 100% accurate, whilst you're 80% accurate to win you the game.
You're going to spend some time at an alignment camp and over the next few months preparing for the international season, spend time with players and 2 new coaches in the system that have experience in Ireland, in England, in Japan, in New Zealand. So how beneficial do you think that is for players and coaches to have such a wide range of experience in different leagues, different styles of rugby, and inevitably different interpretation from the referees? If you throw that all together, that can be something really positive, can't it?
Really positive. A lot of players have been in a mold for a long time, and sometimes you just need someone else who have shown that he's got that attacking ability, or they just fuse at the same quality level, but just from a different side, bring that variation. And that's part of rugby now. Is if you have to have variation, you've got to be smart. You're the best teams in the world currently have something up their sleeve or a new string to their bow, So I think that's going to be hugely beneficial. And meeting the boys at dinner last night, I think there will also be some social variety now.
You said earlier that this is the one team that you were always able to support. How special to be wearing that logo.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you'd like to say it's a dream come true, but you never dream about this because you're a referee. So I never dreamt about this, but it was always so special for me when they invited me to camp and to be part for 2 days and leave. And then on Saturday, you follow them and get some feedback. And, it's so, and what I do is the 1%ers, it's not the fundamentals, about the 1%, differences, but it's unbelievable. Got to pinch myself.